So Hollywood filmmakers have a new muse. It's an enormous $79 billion debt storm cloud looming over every project. With the recent Paramount and Warner Brothers merger, financial obligations and the studio's bottom line will essentially be the things that are guiding the scripts. But the cameras aren't rolling only on the studio lots. They're on the faces of everyone around you. Smart glasses continue to increase in popularity, raising serious privacy concerns. But a new app now alerts you if someone nearby is wearing a pair. Plus, Apple's new cheapest ever $599 MacBook, a telephoto lens on a smartphone, and the secret tool Netflix uses to get those perfect documentary interviews. This is File New, your weekly source of creator and designer updates. So what does $79 billion in debt actually mean for filmmaking, TV, and all the streaming content getting made? Well, an Instagram account that I follow called Screen Thrill posted some of the merger plans. Mind you, this is a developing story and the merger is awaiting approval. So all the signs point to this being what comes next, but everything hasn't been inked in yet. HBO and Paramount Plus will merge into one streaming service. Each studio will produce 15 films each, meaning 30 movies total, and they'll have a 45-day exclusive theatrical window. Dana Harris Bridston from IndieWire positioned it really well, saying that debt introduces timelines, bottom lines, and obligations that are going to shape what's acceptable and what's not worth the studio's risks. Companies carrying this kind of financial weight can't afford to experiment anymore. They need to constantly invest in assets that are going to reliably convert to revenue. This means that we can expect cinematic universes to grow and grow and grow, for worse and I guess sometimes for better. But intellectual property that quote unquote works will continually be resurfaced, like beating a dead horse, meaning sequels will keep multiplying, and anything without a proven return will have to fight for its shot at the spotlight. With 200 million subscribers, the new streaming service will immediately become one of the world's largest direct-to-consumer platforms. They said that they're going to find $6 billion in synergies in the next 3 years, so good luck, everybody. Another quote from Dana Harris Bridston says that this deal happened because the entertainment business is undergoing tremendous change. No matter how big they are, studios no longer function as the industry's sole organizing force. Massive acquisitions don't reverse that trend, they accelerate it. The changes won't be immediate. It's going to be like a boiling frog situation, but the media and creative landscape that we experience 5 years from now is going to be very different because of this deal that's being made right now. All right, but now let's turn the cameras away from the Hollywood actors, and we're going to point them at you guys, because I'm not sure if you guys have noticed, but there are cameras on the faces of everyone around you, literally millions of people around you. If you want to talk specifics, it's 9 million people globally. The United States is the primary market for these glasses, and there's a good chance that you've probably seen someone this week wearing them, but you just weren't able to tell because they are like indistinguishable from your standard Ray-Bans. It's obviously raising a lot of privacy concerns for people, and so there's an app developer, Yves Jean Renaud, who created an Android app called Nearby Glasses. It's available on the Google Play Store, and it scans your vicinity for Bluetooth signals from nearby devices and alerts you when someone is in your vicinity wearing smart glasses. When the app detects a device from Meta or from Snapchat, it alerts you with a pop-up notification. And so for creators and designers, the fact that they're practically indistinguishable from regular glasses is kind of a double-edged sword. In one hand, it's really great because you can genuinely capture authentic moments, right? You can get somebody living in the moment without you having to pull out your phone and say go or recreate a moment. It's just authentic and right there. And not to mention, it's great to document something when you need to use both of your hands. But on the flip side, it can be mega creepy. It means that anyone at any given time could be recording us and we have no idea. So the app isn't foolproof, and Bluetooth detection has its limitations, and the app is still very new. But it raises a question that the industry is going to have to answer. Basically, do we collectively agree and submit to sacrifice our privacy and be recorded everywhere? Or does some kind of opt-out standard emerge? It kind of reminds me a lot of when AirTags first came out and we had to quickly find a solution for stalking. It was one of the few times that Google and Apple naturally came together to develop a solution to combat and unwanted activity. They ended up making a shared protocol so that Android could warn about AirTags and that iPhones could warn about Android devices. Will we and can we see this kind of collaboration again? Meta obviously has a really strong incentive to get these things on everyone's faces, and Apple is also rumored to launch their own glasses sometime in the near future. It could definitely definitely hurt the industry temporarily, but I think strengthening consumer trust is really going to be the only way that I see this not turning into a dystopian nightmare. But since we're on the topic of Apple, we should probably talk about the 3-day press cycle that they've got going on. Notably, they didn't hold a keynote this year. They just instead sporadically published press releases and videos over the last 3 days. So they announced a new iPhone 17e, a new iPad Air, and 2 new studio displays. But I think that the 2 biggest takeaways for creators this week are the new MacBook Neo and the new MacBook Pro models. The MacBook Neo is the big headline here. It's the $599 fanless laptop. It's fanless because it has the same chip in it as an iPhone 16 Pro. But surprisingly, not the iPhone 17 that they just announced, but it probably has something to do with cost. And you can even get it as low as $499 if you have a student discount. It has a 13-inch screen and only weighs 2.7 pounds. I don't think that the heavy motion designers, video editors are going to benefit from this model, but if you're just making client presentations or you're using web-based products like Adobe Express or Google Docs, or even just doing basic photo editing, I think that this is a great entry point. But of course, if you're someone like me who is using After Effects, you've got your eye on the next biggest and best thing. You're wondering how much it's going to hurt your pockets. This is where the new MacBook Pro models come in. The new models have the new M5 Pro and the M5 Max chips and have a dedicated neural accelerator. Apple says it's 4 times faster than the M4 models, which were last year, and then 8 times faster than the M1, which are these great laptops that are still holding up years and years later. Storage is starting at 1 terabyte, which is double the previous base, and has 24 hours of battery life and supports up to 4 external displays. Surround yourself with displays. Although then again, I guess this is technically using 3 monitors when I'm recording this podcast, so I don't have much room to talk, but 4 just seems like wild. All right, I know that was a lot of technical jargon, so I hope I didn't lose you guys, but let's hop over to something weird and fun. Canon showed up to a popular trade show in Japan with a camera that you shoot from the hip. The camera has no name, no price, no release date, but Jaron Schneider from Petapixel is reporting that they showed off 2 different possible designs, a modern version and a vintage option, and they were asking attendees to fill out a questionnaire on which one they liked more. Oliver's in the chat saying that apparently the top-down viewfinder is traditionally how TLR and SLR film cameras originally were, all the way back in the 1800s. An SLR camera stands for single lens reflex camera, and that means that it uses a mirror to let the viewer look directly down the actual lens of the camera so that what you see is what you get. And so when you take the picture, you're physically flipping the mirror to allow light to strike the film or image sensor. The camera's using a really small sensor, which is kind of strange because those are ones that are usually reserved to be used in like compact cameras and phones, but the camera itself is pretty bulky. Jaron went so far as to even say that it's like the size of a grapefruit. It has this fat knob on the right-hand side for manual focus and a fixed lens. Retro cameras are so hot right now, there's actually reportedly an audible click as you shoot the camera. Other manufacturers like Hasselblad have been playing with this form factor, but it's really interesting to see Canon taking calculated risks just to see if we want it. And we do. We want it. And it's cool to see the analog resurgence happening. I mean, it felt prominent in years prior. Like, yeah, there was a resurgence of vinyls and film cameras, but it feels even more intentional now and poignant now that we're like navigating an AI active landscape. Blake Brittain from Reuters reported that on Monday, the U.S. Supreme Court declined to hear a case regarding whether art generated by artificial intelligence can be copyrighted under U.S. law. The case was put forth by a computer scientist named Stephen Thaler, who tried to register a piece of work with the U.S. Copyright Office. It was created by his personal AI system in 2018. Now, see, that creation date stands out to me because considering the systems we now associate with AI generation, like Midjourney or Firefly, didn't appear on the market until several years later, like 2021. Regardless, the U.S. Copyright Office's position has been consistent since 2022. Creative works require a human author. And so a federal judge actually upheld that ruling in 2023. And then the D.C. Circuit Court affirmed it in 2025. And then the Supreme Court has now declined to hear the appeal. So I guess that settles that. If you want to copyright it, just draw it, okay? So while the Supreme Court is over here defining the legal bounds of AI and art, hardware manufacturers are over here pushing the physical boundaries of the tools that we use to capture art. Have you ever seen a phone with a telephoto lens like this? It's a dockable 400 millimeter super zoom tacked onto a smartphone. This is like what you see people using when they're shooting in wilderness or on the sidelines of a football field. Chinese mobile manufacturer Vivo debuted this at MWC Barcelona. It's an annual trade show for mobile communications, and this is their X300 Ultra smartphone. Jeremy Gray from Petapixel is reporting that it has this zoom lens attachment that they claim can be cropped up to an insane 1600 millimeter super telephoto zoom on your phone. It also has one of those attachments that distribute weight on the other side of the camera and provides a grip and shutter button that make it more similar to a DSLR. It has a built-in cooling fan and compatibility to connect to pro-grade camera cages that wrap around the phone with cold shoe mounts for accessories. It's just crazy to see how much this space between phone equipment and traditional professional equipment keeps narrowing more and more. Remember when Instagram was only photos? Here is a quick snippet for anyone who is on Instagram. Lucas O'Keefe highlighted some Instagram updates from the official creators channel. Access to some features are being gated to accounts with larger followings now. To make trial reels, you have to now have more than 200 followers. If you want to live stream or have a broadcast channel, it requires over 1,000 followers and activating a professional account. So if you've lost access to something recently, that's probably why. And whether it's a cost-saving measure or a move towards strong-arming higher quality content on the platform, it means that the barrier for entry for professional creators just got a little bit higher. So if you're under that 1,000 follower mark, your strategy for 2026 might be that you need to shift from broadcasting to the void back to something like community building. All right, so I hope you're feeling updated. Those are the headlines for this week, but we still got plenty of show to still go through, and I've got a lot more that I want to get into. For our next segment, Rebrand, we're looking at a bunch of brand updates from NPR to Getty to the Actor Awards. The Actor Awards were this past Sunday, and before you ask me what the Actor Awards are, don't worry, they're actually just the Screen Actors Guild Awards, but they're rebranded. SAG decided that not enough people knew what SAG stood for, so they simplified it to just the Actors Awards. I think, honestly, it was a smart move. It felt like a natural evolution and not like an oversimplification. I made a short video on my own YouTube and Instagram. You can find me at Ryan Selvey on both of those. But here's the video I made breaking down the broadcast design and the stage design, so let's take a look. The biggest winner at this year's Actor Awards wasn't on stage, it was the stage. They rebranded from the SAG Awards, rebuilding everything around this massive curved display that became the design language for the whole show. According to Matt Steinbrenner, it drew inspiration from the curve of the SAG after mask and the idea of pulling back the curtain. You could see it in the ribbons framing the stage and in the motion design where transitions swept like red curtains, followed by a fluted glass layer that felt like another layer of drapes. Broadcast graphics weren't pulled to full screen, they were seamlessly integrated into the physical space itself. Last year, it felt like there was a screen on stage. This year, the stage was the screen. The color palette started with warm reds, peaches, and golds, but the whole system could transform into steel blues for certain awards and black and white for moments like In Memoriam. The lighting, stage, and graphics always shifted together. Look at the cool way they lit up the stairs here. Now, since the show was on Netflix, the design had to work on everything from a 6-inch phone to a 70-inch TV, so the type had to stay simple and legible. But designer Francisco Garcia Nava still found ways to add personality. Check out the corners of these lower thirds. They feel like stage lights. And I loved how the rotating reflective gold frames went around the nominees. Huge props to Silent House, the company behind the Eras Tour and the Macy's Parade, for pulling off such a great show. I'm Ryan Selvey. Follow for more designer and creator news. I thought it was a great, successful rebrand. I mean, obviously, but both the change of the name and the show production both stuck the landing. All right, moving on. I think that the next one is also pretty successful. I wouldn't put it at the same 100% great as I would the Actor Awards, but definitely a successful approach. The Getty. It's the famous California Museum Foundation Institute. It's based in LA, and it announced a new visual identity a few weeks ago. I did see it on Instagram back then, and initially I didn't think much of it, but then when I saw Charlotte Beach's great article in Print Magazine about it, it really grew on me. So Getty partnered with Fred and Fareed New York to come up with a new identity. At the center of all of it is this stylized G here. It's made up of 4 different size blocks. They're strategically arranged to form a G, and the blocks are apparently references to the architecture of the museum. It's the limestone tiles in the actual wall near the building. I'm seeing in the chat that Wade and Kendall thought it was the letter E, and Oliver just generally couldn't tell what it was, so I don't know what that means about the brand. But as a quick reminder, if you're wondering where these names are coming from, this show actually streams live on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific on the Adobe Live YouTube channel. Would love to have you there. The 4 blocks are meant to represent the Getty's 4 core programs: the museum, the foundation, the Conservation Institute, and the Research Institute. This case study shows it's meant to dynamically interact with different imagery. I like it when it's like doing this little poke through in the middle without disturbing any of the placement around the blocks though, because later they're trying to show the logo exploding and surrounding a piece of key art and it's losing its shape and it's just not working for me. To me, the abstraction doesn't read as the G anymore when they do this. And while I applaud integrating motion design into your brand language, I think that that's more important now than ever. I think that maybe they need to cook on this one just a little bit longer. Overall though, I'd still give it a thumbs up. A redesign can still be successful, even if not every single element of it works. I find that a lot of times with these rebrands, it's just a first step, and over the coming years and the way that they pass projects between designers and implement the work into different spaces, the strong elements survive. But here's hoping that the weird motion design gets refined in that process. And then there's timeless design. NPR has had this iconic design for a little less than 30 years. The red, black, and blue logo was implemented back in 1998. They're not doing a full rebrand. This is a limited time activation, but they partnered with the creative agency Mischief at Fixed Address to temporarily change the letters in the logo from NPR to WHO for who, how, and why, as a reflection of the importance of asking questions in journalism. But this isn't just some social media profile picture change. They even actually updated the physical signage at NPR's headquarters and placed it on billboards in New York City, Chicago, and Washington, D.C. I think it's a really successful activation. It doesn't abandon the brand. The logo for NPR is so iconic that even when you switch out the letters, it's still immediately recognizable. Instead, it just makes you kind of do this double take, and then that even elevates the brand values. The takeaway here for me is brand confidence. You can only pull off something like this if you're really confident in the strength of your identity. It requires years of strict adherence to brand guidelines and consistency so that later when you break those rules, you have the space to do so. And actually, let's just keep talking about legacy brands because Mattel has been around for 81 years. They were founded in 1945, and then they still have never had a custom typeface until now. Grace Stelling at Fast Company reported that Mattel owns over 100 brands, and they've been licensing individual fonts for all of their individual brands on a global scale for decades. This is Hot Wheels, Barbie, Fisher-Price. They're all the same brand umbrella, but they all have different fonts. That's expensive, it's inconsistent, and just probably annoying to manage. So Mattel tapped Chicago-based creative industry Gertrude to develop a custom font pairing, and they called it Maddie and Belle Mattel Sans. It's named after a duo of characters the team found while they were researching the archives of the company. Apparently, they used these two characters in branding from the 1950s all the way up to the 1970s, and even as going as far as incorporating Maddie into the logo mark at one point. To quote Grace Snelling in her article directly, they used the characters as inspiration for two different fonts, one more grounded, practical font named after Maddie, and another more playful font named after Belle. Penny in the chat is saying that the little guy would make a good Halloween costume, which is true. When approaching the design, they were told Mattel planned to use it in multiple languages, including Turkish and Greek, so it had to be flexible and it couldn't have too many flourishes or ornaments. So that's where the two characters come in. They're two fonts. Maddie Mattel Sans is the core font, a chunky sans serif font used for readability, and then Belle Mattel Sans is a library of special characters and glyphs. It's a way of using glyphs as a design library. It's kind of playful, just like the company. But there is something to be said about working smarter, not harder. I'm always looking for ways to improve the way that I make things. And while I may not have access to this next tool, it's one that I wanted to show you guys. We've only got one feature in this week's Spotlight, but I think you're going to like it. Josh Miller DP on Instagram recently posted a video of this tool companies like Netflix use to get more authentic experiences captured on camera. I got his permission to include his video, so let's take a look.
Have you ever wondered how they get those awesome interviews in those Netflix documentaries? Well, it's this tool right here. This is called an iDirect, and basically it's the concept of a teleprompter. So Jay is sitting there, he's the interview person. He's gonna look in here, and this mirror in here bounces off this, and then there's another mirror here that bounces off that. And the interviewer can sit off to the side and be talking to the person, and their face is in there, but they're actually looking down the barrel of the lens. So it helps the person being interviewed feel more like they're actually just talking to a person rather than down a black hole.
I mean, in hindsight, naturally, I kind of knew that something like this existed. It has to. You know, there's no way that you have people talking about traumatic situations in documentaries and are just able to authentically kind of speak down the barrel of a camera. I mean, like even for this show, I'm using a teleprompter and that can either reflect chat or it can reflect a script in front of the camera. I also can even put like Zoom calls on it so that I can like look the other person in the eye. But I guess I never really thought of this practicality of using mirrors to make eye contact with a person in an interview. It's really cool. And finally, we have Font of the Week. Obviously, you're watching this via the streamlined, optimized replay. If you want to vote on the Font of the Week, just make sure that you join the live experience on Wednesdays. But I still wanted to run through each of the contestants and then just go over who the winner was. First up is Alder Dash. It was designed by Ray Larabi from Typodermic. It's self-described as the campy Claridon. It is a silly slab serif typeface that uses automatic character substitutions to create a boisterous, bouncy impression. The letters are purposely cattywampus and bouncy, so this is not your font for like a serious document, obviously. This is your font for anything that needs to be approachable or playful, maybe childish, maybe a little sarcastic, just anything that's genuinely fun. The second one is Pollen. It was designed by Eduardo Berliner from Type Together, and while the previous one was a loud font, this one is the direct opposite. It's quite quiet. It's described in simple terms as a poetically joyful text typeface from calligraphic roots. It's the kind of font you'd use probably for like a love letter, a sentimental announcement, something that needs to feel like intimate without being precious. And then the third is Roc Grotesque. It was designed by Nikola Kostic and Zoran Kostic from the Kostic type. It's an aggressively loud, heavy sans serif grotesque, and it's inspired by American wood type from the late 19th century. It has 9 weights, 5 widths, and that means that you get 45 different options with this one. We went from a goofy font to quiet to like a giant boulder being dropped on your head with this one. All 3 are in the raindrop for this episode, so you can find them easily. The winner this week, with 50% of the vote, went to Alder Dash, which means you can find that one in the Font of the Week winners folder on the Raindrop. The other 2 will be in the episode marked March 4th, 2026. But that's it for File New this week. Thank you for watching this new edited version. It's something that I'm experimenting with, taking the full live stream and cutting it down into something worth your time watching as a standalone watch. If you want to catch the show live, make sure that you check us out on Wednesdays on the Adobe Live YouTube channel at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. You can also follow File New as a podcast wherever you listen or watch podcasts. I'm Ryan Selvey on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky, so come find me wherever you like to hang out most. If you enjoyed this episode, please give this video a like and share it with someone that you think might like it too. Comment below. I'd love to see what you think about the stories, and maybe I'll feature it on next week's show. Anyway, see you next week.